Craving the one and only Fong's Pizza? We thought so. Fong's Pizza in Cedar Rapids now delivers. Order direct delivery or curbside pickup from Fong's Pizza by calling 320-9992. All of your Fong's favorites and a Fong's spin on the classics, from their mega pepperoni to the Iowan and street taco. Delivery, takeout, carside to go. Call 320-9992. Fong's Pizza, Newbo District, downtown Cedar Rapids.
Iowans know a thing or two about a hard day's work. That's why we do things the right way at Barntown Brewing. Grain-to-glass beers brewed in-house. Scratch-made food, handcrafted with fresh, locally sourced ingredients. We work hard for the reward of watching our guests enjoy great food and beer. Barntown Brewing. West Des Moines, Waukee.
Hello, friends. Gosh, the Masters is just over, and I sound like Jim Nantz now. It is HawkeyePodcast.com, Hawkeye Podcast. I'm John Miller, along with Mark Morehouse. We are so glad to have you with us again for this episode, recording on the old school pre-COVID tax day of April 15th, 2015. And I sure am glad, Mark, that I've got another 30 days to wring my hands and decide what the hell I'm going to do with my taxes.
You know, since the big tax revolution, in 2017, we never paid in. After that, we're a little nervous. We pay in every year now. So who knows? Maybe quitting my job affected that. Let's find out. What a fun month this is going to be.
What a great box to open. Surprise.
Oh, my goodness. I can't wait to go just turn myself into the government and say, I need to work this off.
Yeah. Turn your hands inside out. They've got some payment plans. There's an event coming up this weekend in Iowa City. Iowa football fans in front of Iowa football players in Kinnick Stadium for the first time since in the
spring,
November,
since 2018.
November of 19 is the last time fans were in front of them in Kinnick Stadium, because there was no spring football in 2020. But yeah, the first spring exposure since 2019 or 2018.
I think it's 2018.
Because they didn't have it in 19 because of some construction going on, right?
Yeah,
with
the
end zone.
North end zone was going on. So this will be the first spring event at Kinnick since 2018. How many fans were in that last game in October, or whenever that last game was in Kinnick, October, November?
Of 2019?
Was it percentage? No.
Last season. The COVID.
So this will be the first time. Yeah. Was there fans at all?
There was friends and family.
Okay. So
basically, the Illinois game. Probably
so you're right.
800.
Right. This is the first game since my last game at Kinnick, which would have been. I'm trying to think of Illinois 2019 maybe.
Yeah.
So that would have been my last game covering in Kinnick, and this would probably be the first event where, and I don't know what the rules are tomorrow or Saturday. Saturday.
Yeah.
I don't know what the rules are for fans, but you know what? You guys go watch your Hawkeyes. We'll talk about some of the things maybe you want to look for. Some of the things think about stuff that they can't hide. That eventually the quarterback's gonna have to make a throw. The offensive and defensive lines will have one-on-one pass blocking drills. There'll be 9 and 7 drills, which to me are the inside running drills. I'm sorry, to me are the most fun. I think you enjoy the blitz drills.
Yes,
and the blitz drills are either very, very painful to watch,
usually,
or once in a while, an offense will have its crap together early and there'll be a playmate.
And when you see that, when you see the offense picking up maybe 33% efficiency on these blitz drill sessions, that's something you go,
That's
you file
good.
that away. That's like me always using Morehouse as my bellwether on how the defense was going to be every spring. I mean, we each have our things.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to weave in some commentaries from some folks here. And I want to remind you all, whether you're watching or listening, if you're watching, you can see the number. If you're listening, we have a free text group. It's 515-474-7216. I'll say it one more time. 515-474-7216. Send a simple text to that number that just says, sign me up, sign up. or you can send the letter A or the letter T. Doesn't matter. Anything. Just send something. No inappropriate pictures, please, to that text number. That will add you to our free, no strings attached text group. And one of the things, obviously, when there's breaking news or things like that, we'll send things of that nature out. And, we're kind of in that time of year where maybe there's less of that than what we'll be using it for in the fall and next winter. But I've been the last couple of weeks sending out texts saying, hey, Mark and I are going to podcast. Do you have any comments or questions? Been inundated with responses. So one, thank you, folks.
That's great to hear, by the way. That's great to hear.
It's awesome. I read every single one of them, and we can't possibly get to all of them, but many of them are similar in nature. And I'm going to start using your voices to, as much as I can, weaving in these conversations because, Mark worked when he was at spring football. I didn't work. I would bug people like Mark, probably honestly did annoy you, and that's okay. And I could pick up on it, and I'm like, okay, Mark's actually has a pen out, and he's charting plays with Doc over there, and they're charting yards. I need to leave Mark the hell alone.
That was actually the most fun. That was really fun because Scott had one job, I had the other.
When you put them together, it was
gold. we put it together. We worked at the Gazette. We put it together, and it was one of the most hit posts of the year because it was observational. Scott took care of the lineups, which I think is hugely important. If nothing else, we don't obviously know some of the variables like somebody can't make practice because they've got academic something.
Right.
If they're injured, if they're holding them out, but the lineups that you see, that's their status. That's their status after however many spring practices, and so. I think it's important. And then the one thing I do think that I did waste my time doing, and that I would not suggest anybody to track, is stats. Don't unless there's a big touchdown. So just always mark where the line of scrimmage is. So if Petras throws a bomb to Tyrone Tracy, you want to know how long it was, or if Goodson. Tyler Goodson rushes for a 40-yard touchdown. You want to know that it's a 40-yard touchdown.
Right.
You don't necessarily care if he had 15 carries for 120 yards. But I used to keep track of that stuff, and lo and behold, it would show up on TV in Des Moines from people who I know didn't track that stat. I'm not just pointing them out, but
with no courtesy attribution.
No courtesy attribution. I think people thought that they were sort of...
you were doing a public service, that you were sports information.
No. I think they thought they were official, that I got them from sports information, which is fine.
Which
I'm not complaining.
That makes sense to me. That makes sense.
I'm not complaining. I was happy to help, but those were worthless. Watch. There are certain things you can watch that are things that they're going to do, and specifically with Spencer Petras.
Yeah. So let's start going down this line. Connor Blythe asks, what are the main areas that you always look to assess in spring practice and glean something from, and what should be taken with a grain of salt? I can't think of a better way to start this conversation than that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the things I look at with quarterback are accuracy. There's a huge right now, and people are making good points. I say Petras 2020 versus Petras 21 is the biggest battle in the Hawkeye spring camp. Petras is the last name on both players, and boy, oh boy, there's a faction of Hawkeye fan who are done with them. I want to say, John, who just saw enough last year and are pissed, and they're done because they come at them with knives and forks already, and there's just nowhere to go with quarterback evaluation right now because none of us have seen any of it. But last year's 2020, the impression Petras left was not a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Was not one of competence. So he's 2021 Petras has got to beat 2020 Petras. Saturday, you can kind of maybe get a little gauge if you look at ball placement. Now, he's been hard on himself for ball placement. I think O'Keefe this week was hard on him for ball placement. And before that, when I was still around, O'Keefe talked about Petras's that he wasn't great throwing on the run, which to me is a big part of Iowa's offense that does so many play action passes, and it was a huge differentiator between Stanzi and Christensen way back in 2008. Stanzi could throw on the run. Christensen could throw into the ground on the run. Nobody liked that. So you'll be watching Petras Saturday. Watch what shoulder he throws to. Now, it's not a big thing, but if you look at Yak, that makes things go. Yak is a bigger stat than people give it credit. I think it shows competency in the passing game. Yeah, right. It might show like Tyrone Tracy's run a couple of years, 2019 against Northwestern, the short pass, broke a tackle, and ran. Yeah, there's that. But I also think quarterback putting the ball in the right place really kind of sets that up and makes that go. If he's not doing that again, then you're gonna go to Twitter and complain. Complain to me. I want to know because I probably won't be there, and I want to know. I want to know what you see. So let me know about that. Footwork, John. You talked about footwork last week. I think that goes right along with accuracy. What you're doing with your feet. You'll be able to see that Saturday. What was the other thing with the one thing I really enjoy talking? I mean, a few years ago, talking to O'Keefe, he actually. I don't want to say he opened up, because I don't think he really did, but he talked about what he thought was important for a quarterback to show: quick feet, quick release, decision making, anticipation is one thing. He wants the ball to be there a third of the way to the receiver by the time he comes out of his cut. And so many times last year, and so many times with Stanley, ball was late. Receiver's out of his cut, he's open. Quarterback doesn't pull the trigger. And that was Stanley's Penn State 2019, 18. What was it? 19? I think it was 19.
The one where they fumbled the ball at the 2-yard line that year.
Yeah. Oh, they threw the interception at the
interception. Yeah, the interception.
Yeah. So that, and then Stanley had a thumb injury in that game. So you can see that. So anticipation to me. Being able to throw on time. And so you'll be able to see some of that Saturday. One of my favorite things, and Tom Kakert will claim that he invented this, but you know that I was the first one down there taping one-on-ones like a moron, one-on-one pass blocking drills. But Tom was right next to me, but we would make jokes about it, about, why are we doing this? I don't know. People seem to really enjoy it. And you do get some instant gratification out of that one because if you see Yaya Black, I'm still
YA Black.
YA. It's like YA Kittle, YA Black. If you see him embarrass Tyler Linderbaum, make a note. Right. Make a note of that. So one-on-ones I think are great. 9-on-7, the inside running drills are great. You will see an offensive tackle eat a young linebacker alive. There'll be a body thrown to the turf that you'll go like, holy moly. I saw Sheriff hit a guy almost in the first row. I mean, just I want to say maybe Nick Neiman too, who ended up being a really good player. It couldn't have been Nick Neiman. No, it couldn't have been Nick Neiman. It might have been a Neiman. But wide receiver drills, are they consistent? Are they open? Look for this. Whatever media puts out a good series of videos, as long as they keep them under 2 minutes, they won't hear from Steve Rowe. Check that out. Rob Howe was doing that for a while over there at Hawkeye Nation. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. I loved when the spring game or whatever you want to call it event for Iowa was on BTN because you had a little categorized. You had something to go off for the next however many months. But anyway, I want to hear from you guys on what you see at spring. Running back, what do they do with the ball? Are they taking a jump cut? Are they keeping their feet moving? Of course, it goes with what play is called. But what are their? Maybe you could pick up on a few tendencies. But defensive backs, the 1-on-1, the 7-on-7 drills. Scott did those. I did the lineman thing. Scott would do those, and I would hear a yell. You didn't hear so much yelling on a fake sack where the manager got patted on the butt by the defensive tackle. You'd heard oohs and ahs when Beathard would hit Kittle for a 60-yard touchdown over.
Right.
Let me safety at that time.
Beathard, Kittle, safety. It's not
Sean Considine. He's old.
Well, see, that's the thing. I can go Pagel, I can go Bolin, I could go Constantine, I can go Greenwood. I mean, I can go through all these names. Sash. It's just the more recent guys that I tend to struggle with. Who? Gervais?
Maybe Gervais.
Maybe Jake Gervais.
Yeah. Maybe that group. That group is gettable. in passing, and so another player I'd like to see, who I thought last year, if there wasn't a COVID year, I think Sam Laporta might have really jumped on a few radars because he got targets last year.
Right.
Now, what you talked about last week with and this is one thing fans will not swallow or tolerate or hear right now is, yes, Petras lost 1,000 reps last year in spring. No excuse. Fans don't care. They saw what they saw, and that's what they're stuck in, and that's fine. That is, to me, a justified take coming into the season on Petras. I said at the end of 2020, I didn't think he won 2021, and I still think that. Now, what does Padilla have? Padilla, I think his upside is like a Purdue quarterback like David Blow. Accurate, puts the ball where it gives your receivers a chance to run into it. I think that's what kind of quarterback he'll be. I think that race is a little bit closer than people think. And as far as Deuce, people want Deuce. Padilla's been skipped over. People want the hype, and you can't really say, why does Deuce have hype when there were novels written about him during recruiting. So
right.
You can't claim like, oh, why are you guys crazy? No, you made people crazy over Deuce. So
right.
That is a fair thing too for fans, I think. Wondering where Deuce is in year 2, that's fair. I could tell you he's 3, and he probably didn't get many quality reps last year in practice because of the nature of the season. So I think he's very much an unpainted picture right now.
Right. I was just sitting here thinking of a couple of things, Mark. For one, Saturday is the 17th. That's the first open practice. A week from Saturday, April 24th, that's nothing in Kinnick Stadium. I only bring that up because April 24th is the midway point between the Wisconsin game and the Indiana game on week 1. That's the midway point of the offseason is April 24th. So Saturday, May the 1st, which is an open date for fans, the second of the spring, you'll be closer to new Iowa football than old Iowa football. So I kind of think old man stuff like that sometimes. Number 2, timing on breaks. You mentioned that. Looking at timing on breaks with Petras and the receivers. Go back to the missed 1,000 reps. How important were those 1,000 reps that Petras didn't get in timing with guys like Amir Smith-Marset and Brandon Smith? I mean, he didn't have that, and Iowa happened to have probably the most dangerous collection of wide receivers they've ever had at one time in the Ferentz era. This year, he will have those reps. He will have that timing. And no, ISM and Brandon Smith are not going to be there, but we talked about this last week, Mark, and this is another week. Receivers coach Kevin Copeland talking about Johnson and Bruce. When coaches are talking about true freshmen at all, to me, that's something to raise your eyebrows about. When Kirk ever brings up a freshman or a young player without being asked specifically about them, that is something to take a note about because he doesn't usually like that. We all know that he doesn't let them talk. But I think this receiver group is going to probably not be quite as big of a drop-off as we maybe thought at the end of last year. And the timing, the reps that Petras is getting with them this spring is invaluable, not just to the receivers, but also to Petras and his development. And I really like how you framed the Petras 2021 battle is with Petras of 2020. He has the skill set. He has pretty much everything with the exception of being able to throw on the run, like you said. That's not one of his strengths. But he has the arm tools. He has the big tool chest, is an analogy you've always liked to use. Does he have it up here to overcome a lot of those negative mental reps that he could pull up from last year? Remains to be seen, but that's what makes these things fun.
When Brian Ferentz is talking about a quarterback or a quarterback in his second year, I guess, when he starts throwing around the word mastery of the system or the phrase mastery of the system, he really does like the guy. And he has used that with Petras. Of course, you can fall out of love fast with a first quarter like Petras had. And I'm using Illinois only because I saw that game the other night on 60 for 60. Petras struggled in the first quarter, and that's the first time that I thought the hook might be coming.
I tweeted that, you know what? I'm done defending this. This has to stop.
And then he kicked ass.
And here comes Rasputin.
And then yeah, exactly. He threw for 275 yards, I think 3 touchdowns, and they won going away. It's Illinois, and they were running the ball so well against it, which Iowa hadn't really done against Lovey. I mean, Lovey really wanted to shut the run down against Iowa, he did. I mean, that's why you had in 2015 you had Jordan Canzeri rushing 43 times for, I think it ended up being a decent amount, 225 yards, something like that. But Iowa generally has not run well. And then you need the pass. And then there it was, after a struggling first quarter. So, I think there was some pressure on him to perform last year, and he showed up for it. There were mixed results, and fans are still nervous about seeing that, is how I should say. I just did the thing, John, where problem, but everything should be okay, which is what it does and what we all do. I'm kind of programmed to do in the spring. I do like this. Scott had a tweet, and I trust and respect Scott's football knowledge. I think he's fantastic.
Scott, Doctorman of the Athletic.
Yes, I'm sorry. I should probably remind people.
It's a stupid thing I have for my training. Of course,
Radio.
everyone knows you're talking about Scott Doctorman.
No, I know. It's a radio thing. I mean, I talk to Trent, and Trent keeps saying my name every 13 seconds. I'm like, Trent, it's me.
I'm here.
Anyway, Scott has tiered up the wide receivers, and I agree with this generally. Tyrone Tracy, Nico Reganey, Charlie Jones, Max Cooper. Max Cooper, I would believe, would probably be a tier 1 receiver because of his experience.
His knowledge, yeah.
He's probably going to get some reps unless somebody could take them from them. Tier 2 is the guys who could take them from him. Desmond Hudson, who I would love to see develop into Brandon Smith. I want to see him be the X because he's a 6'2" guy, long arms, great story coming out of Kansas City. Brother was killed in a traffic dispute. Family really rallied around, and Desmond is it's a great story. I'd like to see him have some buyout. Deontay Vines and Quavon Matthews, smaller guys who are entering really their first year. And then tier 3, Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce, which names that people. Okay, here's a trick, John, and you got to kind of there's a certain you got to when you. Most people don't watch or listen to the press conferences, but when names come up, who brings up the names? Is it the writer asking about, hey, what about Arlen Bruce? And then the coach talks about Arlen Bruce.
Correct.
Well, the coach talked about Arlen Bruce, and is the headline. Well, the coach talked about Arlen Bruce because he was
the writer brought it. Right.
Not because, holy shit, you guys, Arlen Bruce.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of temper, and I feel like Kevin Bacon getting flattened in talking spring football all the time. It'd be great to say, if I've seen enough of the team in spring, which, won't happen, or if the writers did, and you kind of see that, then you go, yeah, I can kind of see that. You can't do that now because you don't see it. So let's see who's talking about whom, and you'll be able to see Arlen Bruce and Keegan Johnson. So I like that from Scott. I thought that was good. And I think if you turn that around on tight ends, who we all know are just as important in Iowa's offense, obviously you have Laporta, and then I don't know. And then it gets kind of new. They have some big-time recruits who are going to have to show up.
It's probably not Miamin, who got picked up on some charges this week from Dunlap High School, which I used to play them my senior year of high school over just outside Peoria. This is his 3rd year, I think.
Yeah, I think he's the oldest of the young tight ends. Which I know that doesn't make sense, but third year sophomore, John, that's
moving
my
time.
Year. Yes, that's my year where it's time to play or it's time to go.
Right, and I've never even heard him mentioned, even in back channels, and that's okay. I'm not indicting the kid because he hasn't been able to break into the 2 deep of one of the most challenging 2 deeps of college football to break into, which is that Iowa tight end room. But still, that doesn't help your cause by getting popped during spring practices at all. Does not help your cause. I
would 100% agree with that. But one thing I want to say about getting popped for I think he was public intox. Well,
it was some type of disorderly. It was disorderly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a line of demarcation. Media still does make a headline out of the OWI thing, which I think is that's where I drew the line. Okay, if a kid gets a DUI, I'm looking up the record, I'm doing the grunt work and the police and all that kind of stuff. The other alcohol offenses, just downtown, the Paulas, the public intox, the kind of thing, those kinds of things. I like how media has not made those big splashy headlines anymore.
Right.
For the most part. And I say that and watch, something will happen quick and hey, it'll be on the front page. Boy, oh boy, it was a lot different when I was coming up.
You're right, Mark. You're exactly right about that. In fairness to Meeman, let's read. This is what KCJJ, and this was on a Hawkeye Nation from KCJJ. KCJJ is reporting that Iowa football sophomore tight end Josiah Meeman was charged with disorderly conduct, trespass, interference with official act, public intoxication, and possession of a fictitious ID following an incident in Iowa City early Saturday. The police report obtained by KCJJ indicated that Meeman, who is still only 19, was asked to leave El Rey's Live and Dive on Iowa Avenue and allegedly push and attempted to punch a member of the staff. When police spotted him later, he fled on foot, and then he was apprehended. So that sounds like a lot of really, really bad things. I can tell you right now, I did that exact same thing at least twice or 3 times, including trying to get into a fight with staff, being drunk, running from police, and later being tackled and apprehended by them one time in my own front yard in Princeville, Illinois. So I can relate. It's just the timing, and I wasn't a scholarship athlete, a tight end at the University of Iowa with spring practices ongoing.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It'll be a tough one to overturn by the end of spring. I mean, it upsets your status within the program, in the building. If you get suspended from practice or meetings or whatever, that's a big deal.
It is.
It's a big deal, especially with, Laporta, and then
get back on tight ends. I derailed that.
I don't know who else. It looks like Lucas Lachey right now is the number 2, and I expect Elijah Yelverton to really. I mean, those guys are, I believe. I think Lachey probably needs some strength training, but very explosive basketball highlights. I like that from a kid who's 6'6", 230, 240. Yelverton is, I think he's a big rig. I think he looked in high school, he looked ready to be here. So COVID probably, obviously slowed. And that was one thing that Copeland talked about with Desmond Hudson. COVID got to him and kept him out in protocol for a lot of the year last year. Mm-hmm. We don't know who's had, what position groups. I did hear the defensive backs were out like really early last August. The entire defensive backfield, I believe, was out, including Phil. So that makes practice kind of tricky.
Right.
I think Lachey, I think Yelverton, but as far as offensive line goes Saturday, just look for any obvious busts. I'd look for what the guy you think is the weak spot, because that guy is going to get hammered by opposing offenses. To me, right now, I couldn't, and I wouldn't even try to name that. But there are 2 new tackles, and they're going to get tested.
Yes, and this Nick Capaldo asks, how much does it hurt that offensive line that Noah Fenske has entered the transfer portal, because he was listed as the number 2 on the 2 deeps backing up Tyler Linderbaum? My thought to that is that sucks. That means they feel he's one of the 10 best, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's the backup center. I think if somebody had to go and play backup center today, it's probably Justin Britt over Tyler Linderbaum, but Britt is now listed as the number 1 right guard. I think that it stinks for depth, but that, to me, Fenske wasn't necessarily your number 2 center.
And a number 2 center spot in spring, rising to that's a beginning.
Right.
That's
correct.
Not a destination.
That's a ground level opportunity.
It's still in feeling out mode. So I trying to regard how big a loss Noah Fenske is. I couldn't try. I would just say unfortunate. Seemed like a good kid. Dad works in newspapers. I'm a fan of that. Put on a ton of weight during, I think, his junior to senior year in high school. So I don't know what I don't know the commodity. I don't know what he was. So, but I think that what you said about Justin Britt was awesome. I was trying to remember who they tried at center, and you were right. That's the name. it's good to see him rise up to a starting spot.
Mm-hmm.
But Saturday, I'm talking to my friend Hawkaholic, Chris. If you go Saturday, watch the line play, and you tell me on my second Twitter account that no one knows about. You tell me who, and I follow Chris.
I knew you were Hawkeyes.
No, that's not it. Oh gosh, no. I've met him. He's not me. Weak spot. Who you? And I don't mean that to be a bad thing, but we are looking at practice and we are making observations. If you don't want people to make observations that are bad, then don't open practice.
Mark's new Twitter at smark4house.com.
That wasn't it.
Yeah, that's funny.
Defensively, I don't know. Defensively, I think I always like to try to gauge an overall 40 time for the defense. A couple of years ago, I was like, this looks like a defense that run just one too many guys who run a 4.7. And I think that there is a balance in Iowa's defense where, there is one guy, one too many 4.7 guys playing a 4.6 position. Linebacker, safety, that area.
Best analogist of all time. Just the freaking absolute best. That's money. Too many 4.7s playing a 4.6 position. I've never even heard that in my entire life, and it's money.
Well, Iowa's team defense, the guys who aren't fast. But you look at Josie, who ran a 4.8 40. Forget about that. Look at his time between space. Look at his time in between the hashes. Coach, those are the times that really matter to Iowa coaches. Can my linebacker get from one hash to the other hash quick? And that was Josie's strength. That's why I hope he didn't get angered out this year, where Denver, trying to go up in the draft, had him play too many plays and his body gets screwed up like Pat Anger and the Colts. I hope what he did this year was real and he can get into second contract, because that'd be awesome for that kid. Yeah, he deserves it. He's a great kid.
That would be. So, well, I mean, from Iowa's back end, are there players that you're concerned with? Because we're familiar with the starters at the 4 back end, Merriweather and Corner and Moss and Hankins. Are you concerned that that's a 4.7 group in a 4.6 position?
No, I think that group is more than proven.
Right.
Kerner's fast enough. Merriweather, I think, is locked in. We've talked about Riley Moss. Riley Moss is a good football player, good tackler, good enough speed. Purdue will go after him again, and he'll show up.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Hankins, I still think he is right on, like, sort of a. I don't want to say he's probably, if he can be an honorable mention All Big Ten player this year, that would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
So the depth there, I wonder about, and that is another thing you get to see at spring games. You'll get to see a lot of guys play, and you'll get to start forming opinions on a lot of guys. And I think there's 4, 5, 6 freshmen in this. Bruce and Keegan Johnson being two. It'll be interesting to see, if any of those guys look like they are comfortable. Iowa's had tight ends signed early. I'm thinking of the kid from Connecticut. I'm blanking on his name. They get here in the spring, and they about 2 weeks later, no.
A tight end from Connecticut?
I think it was from Connecticut, somewhere out east.
For a second, I thought of Richard Cottrell, the big human, but he didn't play tight end.
No, I'm blanking on this kid's name. It's an Italian name, I think. But
I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about.
He might not have been from Connecticut, but Richard Cottrell, and
I can remember the weird names from way back. I couldn't tell you probably 5 players in this year's recruiting class, and I already know Johnson and Bruce.
To me, our Rollo Tomasi, and that's a line from LA Confidential. You guys should watch that movie; it's fantastic. One of the tells in it that one guy sending a signal to another guy that there's danger. Yeah, was Rollo Tomasi was a name. Mm-hmm. I think our Rollo Tomasi is Wesley Thibodeau.
Oh, yes, from
junior college defensive tackle from
Texas.
I don't think he ever even showed up.
Yeah.
But everybody remembered the name.
It wasn't Port Arthur, but was it Ben Junior College?
I think it was.
Yeah, again.
Blinn, yeah.
Blinn. Ben, I get 7 points out of 10 for just getting to Ben.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's some really deep old
school, no doubt. Roger Randall tosses this in. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, Petras 20 versus Petras 21. If things start bad, how short of a leash do you think there would be? And listen, sorry, I hate that. It sounds like I'm telling you, I hate that term. Consider Iowa may be playing 2 top 10 ranked opponents in their first 2 weeks. That Iowa State defense, really good. And they are not pushover defense. They play a style of defense, that 3-3-5, that at times looks like you've got something going in the running game, but it's a really weird thing to block, although Iowa's zone scheme probably does help it. They got multiple guys that can cut. And Indiana's defense last year, I think, Mark, was really an unsung aspect to their story of ascension. I mean, there's a decent possibility of a bad start for Petras and this entire team.
I think for quarterback, the coaches have to be super decisive. They have to know it's going to work. You know how Kirk every year pretty much says, yeah, we kind of suck in September. Well, if you say that this year, it's going to be, that's football, and they're going to be T-shirts, and then people are going to be pissed. Yeah. So don't say you're going to suck in September, knowing you have 2 ranked teams right out of the gate. It puts some pressure on to be on point on your decision making with personnel, right, on who you are, knowing who you are, knowing what you can do well. But it's going to come down to pulling the stuffing out of the game, trying to run the ball enough, and then making a few plays in the passing game if they need to, and then relying on the defense to keep things in check.
Do no harm offense.
I think, you know what? If Iowa comes 1-1 out of that, I think that'd be a huge success. People probably are pissed off at me for saying that. Right now, the point 2 new tackles going into Iowa State makes me wonder if they're going to be capable of doing that. What year was it? Was it maybe 2017, where Iowa ran 60 times for like 100? No, it had to have been over.
Two new defensive tackles for Iowa State?
Two new offensive tackles for Iowa. Offensive line, an offensive line that's fairly new. Offensive tackle. Speaking of offensive tackle, is going to be hard for Iowa to run the ball 60 times. Games and names, right?
Yes.
It's going to be hard for Iowa to take time off the clock and to impose its constraints of the game via time if they can't run the ball. And I right now, I'm wondering if they can. Tyler Goodson, good player, 2 new tackles. I keep coming back to 2 new tackles and need to see them. And that's one thing Saturday, check that out. But yeah, that out of the gate, Iowa State, I saw this week a top 4 team. And I know it's the ESPN FBI, which, John, the ESPN proprietary, I don't know, what would you call them?
Algorithm?
I think they suck. I think that they are horseshit. And I if anybody quotes them, block them on Twitter, because who cares? Who cares? Especially in ranking right now. But hey, if you're Iowa State, that is winning.
They had them at 4.
That is winning your sales. That's winning your sales right now. You hear that and you start to believe it. It could all come crashing down in week 2.
It's the best Iowa State team on paper.
It is.
Going into a football season of my lifetime.
I'm 100%. You're 100% correct, I think.
And is it easier? By the way, welcome to John Miller's biggest podcast beef. That is a recurring theme. Is it easier to teach young tackles how to block hat on hat and ISO and power O than it is to try to teach them the nuances of the zone scheme, which I realize they're going to invest in the zone scheme. It is what it is. But I don't know. Is it easier for them to try to go mano-a-mano in the early going as opposed to the zone scheme when it's still something they're building on? To me, I'm going to answer. I mean, that seems anti-Kirk. It won't happen, but it's just things I think about.
I don't know. I don't know how much variability is installed early in the year. I think that's something that evolves from Iowa.
Right.
They're going to have to change the rhythms, though. I mean, they're going to just have to change the way they do things a little bit this year, because different year, heavy. Maybe obviously last year was the last time they opened the season against the Big Ten team, but When have they opened a 12-game season against a Big Ten team? I personally, John, I love the Big Ten getting games now, getting games early. I love that. Keeps late August, September vibrant. Keeps the league, the heart pumping, blood pumping in the heart of the league. And you never know. You might get Indiana against Ohio State a few years ago on a Thursday night. It was a hell of a game.
It was. It really was.
I think the Big Ten likes dominating like that when it can on TV, and I think you could see one for sure. Well, it's at Iowa State, so it's Iowa State's game to have broadcast. I wouldn't be shocked to see one or both of those games at night.
Yeah, and I think playing Purdue last year where Iowa did was where I would want to play Purdue earlier before they get going. Iowa should have won that game. I think that playing both Indiana and Iowa State, the Iowa State game is always going to be early in the year. I think playing Indiana early in the year for Iowa is advantage Indiana because that is a veteran team returning.
Yeah.
So, but again, there's going to be people in the stands now. I would guess, now this is a freaking guess, but the trajectory right now, the way things are going relative to vaccinations and cases, in states not named Michigan and Minnesota and New York and Florida, seems positive to where we're likely going to see, I think, at least 50% capacity, unless something crazy happens.
Right.
I've been to 2 baseball games in the last 2 weeks in Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. It's been freaking wonderful. I can't even begin to tell you how awesome it's been.
I'm jealous of that.
It's been as good as you think it is. It's better than that.
We don't have Major League Baseball here in Galena, Illinois.
Well, you got a couple hours away.
We have one Major League Baseball team here in Illinois.
Jeez. Yeah.
Mine is not the one.
Yeah. And the other one I hate. So
I don't mind the White Sox. But you wearing the blue there, I totally get it.
I don't like. I do not like them. So that's at 25% capacity, and they're thinking that they're going to lift that to 50% capacity. That'll be 20,000. It's about 10,000 right now. I think there'll be at least 35,000 people in Kinnick Stadium come fall, maybe a little bit more than that. And there are several players on Indiana's team that haven't played in front of fans. There's going to be a high number of contributors for Iowa, Iowa State, Indiana who've not played in front of fans. Your first and second year players will not have played in front of fans before. Spencer Petras this Saturday, this will be the most fans that he's played in front of at least since high school, if not forever. So can't discount that.
I just knowing him a little bit, I think he's good with that. I think Petras is, but that's an easy. I mean, I'm saying that because I think he ended up on stage at the dance marathon last year and did I don't know if he played or he did a air guitar thing. Anyway, he seems like he's got a performer's heart. Plays guitar, loves Americana. So I think the crowd for him won't be a big deal. But for guys like the 2 new tackles, hearing will be a thing suddenly. That'll be interesting to see. And this would be a tough story to write, but if they still had the Big Ten meet teleconference, one term paper I would try to do is, what about noise now? Last year you guys were kind of spoiled, except for Nebraska with the clapping.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys were spoiled last year because you got to play in a library. This year isn't going to be library time, and that might change things up a little bit.
Right. No, you're right about that. This is a really fun one from Tom Kasobiak. What team on Iowa's schedule will finish with the best ranking at the end of the season? Indiana, Iowa State, Penn State, Wisconsin, or the field? I don't know that there's anybody in the field that's going to hunt. I would say I'm going to rule out Indiana because they play in a tough division. I'm going to say, the best ranking. I'll go Wisconsin.
I was making the W
Oh, yeah, I wasn't looking. I was looking to the left.
I was doing Bielema's W.
Yeah. And that's more about Wisconsin and the division that they play in than it is about Iowa State or the other teams, really.
It's more about Wisconsin standard for me. Wisconsin will win 8 to 10 games. Iowa State could win 8, 10, 12 games. I mean, the people will pick them to win 10 to 12 games.
Right.
How often has Iowa State done that in its history?
9, 10 games. Did they get 10 last year?
I think they did.
I think they did.
But that's not something that happens very often.
No, then they won 9 in 2000 before that. So, yeah, it's like Haley's Comet is a little less frequently seen than Iowa State getting to 9 to 10 wins. But, once is one every quarter century, and Haley's is once every 75 years.
If Iowa State is up to its current standard on defense,
right.
Back in the Big 12 title game, all good.
Yep. I have a hard time trying not to like Matt Campbell, so I stopped trying. I really like him, and
you don't have to do that anymore. If you like an opposing coach,
you're right.
You can like him.
You're right. I left that behind. I like him a lot. I have a good friend of mine whose son plays for the team, played a really key role last year. I'm looking forward this year to going up to a game in Ames. I probably will even wear an Iowa State hat. I'm going to put on a fake mustache, though, because I do not want those pictures to show up on social media.
Is your mustache as gray as mine?
You know what? I just grow it out for real. No one will know that. It'd be incredibly gray. Okay. Really gray. Yeah, my facial hair is every bit as gray as yours, which is why the wife says, nah.
Yeah, it ages you. I mean, it really does.
It does, because you and I are only 3 years apart. Maybe.
Yeah,
if
3 or 4. Yeah. And I look ancient.
Well, it's the beard. It's the beard.
It is.
It's the beard.
And the jowls. I've got my dad's jowls, and they're a tough fight. They're a tough fight, those things.
There's certain things you just can't control. Going here, we've kind of hit one real quick and then we'll go over to basketball. Sure. Amit Singh. And again, thanks to everyone that submitted these questions. We can't get to them all, but we really appreciate it. And again, I read every one of them. Amit Singh says, shouldn't Iowa be the favorite to win the West? Experienced quarterback, good wide receivers, good to great tight end, and D-line has some beasts, and Jack Campbell and back ends experienced. To me, I think it's Iowa or Wisconsin, and I think that's what most everyone's going to have.
I will default to Iowa or Wisconsin, and I will say it's a 2-point game for one team. So it's close. If I pick Wisconsin, I don't mean Wisconsin's here and Iowa's here.
It's just where the game's played.
Yes, it's where the game's played. It's injuries. I mean, that's a late year game. I don't know where it is this year.
I think it's in Wisconsin.
It's usually a November game. I hope it's a November game this year. It should always be a November game, but I don't know what it is this year.
It is. It's an October 30 game.
That's okay. That'll hunt.
The frost is on the pumpkin.
Yes. I think Iowa, Wisconsin, Northwestern this year with Fitzgerald today, and Fitzgerald, he's like my Matt Campbell. He's a guy who I hated his the jauntiness that Northwestern is. Mm-hmm. But now I've come to respect it.
Yes.
And no one squeezes more blood out of the stone than Fitzgerald. Right?
I mean, I've seen several people attempt it. No one does it better than Fitzgerald. Mm-hmm. And he lives on it. He lives on the disrespect. That program, I mean, he's a lifer, and he should be. I actually hope that he does it. I mean, he is a fit. He is to Northwestern what Fry was to Iowa, maybe even more so. More
so. I think how many successful Northwestern football seasons were there before Pat Fitzgerald? And I think he's doubled that number.
Yeah, I mean Barnett had a good run, but
short.
But it was short, and then he parlayed that success into the Colorado job, and so
Walker.
Randy Walker passed away. Didn't have a chance. Yeah, you're right. Did
some
right.
good things. Got that offense. Man, they put up like 600 yards and 55 points on Michigan one year.
Yeah. And then the week later, Iowa beat them in 2000.
Yeah. LeVar Woods had a hell of a game.
It was a great night. So you're right. Where Fry is the paterfamilias at Iowa, I would say the same relative to Fitzgerald at Northwestern. And I like to include a little paterfamilias now and then, not because I think I'm smarter than anyone, because the Coen brothers, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Fantastic.
Just freaking love that movie. Absolutely love it.
But Fitzgerald today bitched about his quarterback and how he said,
so don't ask me. I'll mute myself.
So that does not bode well for Northwestern, who now has been to 2 Big Ten title games to Iowa's 1. Yeah. So there's going to be some FOMO there for the Hawkeyes, and there should be.
Yeah.
You should have more Big Ten title game appearances than Northwestern.
Yes.
Iowa should have that, period. No. End of discussion.
No doubt. Folks that have listened to me on podcasts for a number of years can hear Steve Dace in the background right now saying that there's no program in the Big Ten that is more dependent on think quarterback play than Northwestern. That was his opinion. And I think when you look at the line and you look at the needle, boy, their ebbs and flows based on quarterback play are significant. Quarterback play matters everywhere, but the peaks and valleys they've had with good quarterback play and not good quarterback play are steeper and deeper than anyone else's in the league.
They don't seem to be interested in building an Iowa-type offensive line, a power offensive line. They do have, I think they have good and I mean, they're going to have a top 20 pick in the draft on the offensive line this year, and I want to say the kid's name is Slater, but I'm blanking on it. But they're more of I don't want to. I think most offensive linemen are the same, but I do think there's a difference between a little spread and power a little bit. And Northwestern seems to be those spread type, move type offenses where a block is more of a shade or what's the thing in basketball?
A hedge, a pick.
Pick. That's what I was looking for. I don't know. I'm that bad in basketball.
You're a wrestler, dude. You're a wrestler.
Yeah. So spring, great. The go to it. Absolutely. If you have kids, get them down there and get autographs. I've been next to too many Iowa players who I usually are surly bastards. Sometimes are surly bastards whose smiles on their face. AJ Epineza, he's a nice guy for the most part, but he was a badass defensive player. Him around the little kids signing autographs, he was a puddle. He was just like, yeah, this is fun. And Tristan, same way. Nate Stanley was awesome that way. Kittle would do that. I think Kittle would do that all day if they let him.
Yes, I think so.
So take advantage. Actually, they probably don't have that with COVID.
Well, that's
sorry to throw that out there.
It's just sending the kids crying right now.
What I would do,
Dad,
okay.
Wait, what Mark say?
If I'm Iowa, I have like 5 guys at a time sign like 100 posters and give those out to kids.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be socially distant, and I think that would work. Yeah. Speaking of Kittle, we did have a winner in our George Kittle jersey giveaway, thanks to the several hundreds who signed up to enter that. And we'll do something else like that here a couple more times this year. Matt Taylor of Council Bluffs area was the winner, and I just put that in the mail today. Went to the UPS store, Matt, so sorry it took me a couple of extra days, but thank you, and that is literally in the mail as we speak.
Congrats, man. That's cool. That's a cool item.
Well,
do you think he'll underglass it, or will he?
I would.
Will he wear? I would underglass it.
It's signed, and it's still in the plastic. I mean, it was sitting over my shoulder here for the last month or two, and one time it was it's in the plastic. I didn't take it out of the plastic. I didn't touch it. I didn't contaminate it. I wanted to get it out. I wanted to look at it, but I knew I could never get it back in that bag folded the nice way that it was.
I'm the worst folder.
Yeah, I can't fold. I mean, no. I should take a photo of my dresser doors. It drives my wife crazy, and hers are nice and pristine. Matt Fisher brings up a topic that's worth discussing. Not that any of these aren't, but relative to being a rather popular topic right now. Given the changing landscape of recruiting and transfers, is Fran McCaffery's reluctance to, quote, adapt hurting the program? Lack of athleticism was as apparent, and it seems like nothing is being done to move the needle. So let's
One timeout, one quick timeout.
Yeah.
The transfer thing was passed.
The one-time transfer, yes.
The one-time kids will be able. So if McCaffrey hates this, wait for the next part where kids can go, you know what, I'm out. And you know what, right now, they don't even have to call coaches. They can announce it themselves. Fran, if you hate it now, you're really going to hate it next year.
Right.
Or whenever this kicks in.
Yep. The one-time transfer rule.
Go ahead.
No.
I just wanted to get that's some news
germane.
I saw. That's some news I saw.
Yep. So the one-time transfer rule, that's not just for that's being put into place beyond COVID. From now on, student athletes will have the ability to transfer one time without the sitting out penalty. That's just the new NCAA rule, standard operating procedure going forward, or is this a COVID thing? I kind of think this is a permanent thing.
I believe it's a permanent thing.
Right.
I guess I didn't read the tweet, but
I think that it is because you're right. It has to be because this year's transfer was like a no penalty for COVID. So we'll get some clarification on that.
But in the last 2 years, Gary Barta, Iowa Athletics
said
director,
it's coming.
And he's been on the transfer committee. He's been on the working committee, and this was the one that he talked about the most. One-time transfer. After that, nah. And this is the one that, because there's been too much litigation. There's been too much. Every time somebody wants to transfer, right? They're told no. Well, we got this lawyer, the one lawyer who kind of knew everything, or knew how to break it. So the idea was to get away from the litigation, and now it sounds like they are. I am all for that. Back to Iowa basketball recruiting.
Yes, but that's it. That's part of it. The landscape of recruiting and transfer. So you bring up. So Fran had a press conference this week, and he did not certainly speak glowingly. He spoke begrudgingly about the NCAA transfer portal. I'm going to use a term here that I don't think he used: transfer culture. He's not a fan of it, but yet he's still going to engage in it. I don't have the information or the understanding of how actively Iowa is evaluating players in the transfer portal. I mean, they've got the Philip Rebrecca still that they're looking at and talking to. Although he wanted to get a little more clarification on the reclassification of Iowa center Riley Mulvey, who reclassified to the recruiting class of 2021. He has yet to sign his letter of intent for this year, but a reclassification involves a high school athlete who's already started their 9th year of school, so their freshman year, when they make the decision, because they're able to graduate early, and that means that they've already met the NCAA's 16 core class requirement. They will have met all those by the time they're done with their junior year. They can reclassify their graduation a year early. That's what Mulvey's doing. He'll be on campus this June. He's also 18 years old. It kind of started, 20, 30 years ago. A lot of parents began to hold their kids back an extra year to give them a little bit of an advantage. Either for some social skills development wasn't as up to snuff. For some, they wanted a physical development. There was a whole 60-minute show on this about a decade ago. But I'm not saying that Mulvey was or wasn't. I'm saying he's 18 right now, and he's going to be a senior next year. So he would be 19. So from an age perspective, he's the age that most or many college freshmen are, Mark. Fran doesn't like the portal, but I wouldn't say Fran is ignoring the portal either. I just think Fran's going to be extra selective relative to the culture of his program and not just taking anyone or everyone.
He in football, you can spray and pray a little bit. I mean, look at how many scholarships Nebraska's handed out every year.
How's that working for him?
350.
Better pray a little harder.
I don't know how you can develop a relationship, but blah, blah, blah. That's Nebraska. We're talking about Iowa basketball, and remember, this is a little thing, and I don't mean this sitting next to this is the same thing. I don't mean this at all. But I was kind of in on the hiring of Licklider because I think we were looking for a basketball beat writer, or Halas had something to do, so I had to go do some of this stuff. I didn't mind it. But anyway, one of the things that popped in my head, or something that I heard in one of those press conferences, or something from somebody in Iowa that just came my way was the way Licklider didn't want to have to deal with AAU recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just kind of like, oh, shit, you don't want to have players. Oh, that's too bad. How'd that work out? So AAU is one thing. If McCaffrey's going to treat, and I'm not saying he does. They are active. You've said this. But you can't treat portal recruiting like having to hold your wife's purse at the mall by the fountain for 3 hours. You got to dig in. And then look at the variables. I'm asking the coach to dig in and figure out. They know what they need.
Right.
It's the relationships and the ins. Because these decisions, to me, John, and I might be wrong, but these decisions to me are quicker. These guys have been recruited. They don't want to hear that crap. They have an idea they have a really good idea of where they want to be. They know where they fit, and it's usually done. It's done. And in my mind, well, was there tampering? Well, hell yes, there's probably tampering.
For sure.
I'm not saying Iowa should tamper, but there's a lot of variables to me in transfer and portal recruiting, and it doesn't feel like McCaffrey wants to swim in that.
Right. So we'll see what happens with Rebraca. The big one, Liam Robbins.
The only name that we know right now that I was actively with.
Right.
Liam Robbins went with his uncle to Vandy, right?
The white whale eluded me.
You
warned me.
Ed Conroy, I think, graduated the same year I did. The only reason I know his name is I had a roommate from Assumption who played quarterback my freshman year at UNI, and I think Ed came up a few times. Really nice guy. I think he might have been player of the year in Iowa for Assumption or something like that. Anyway, happens to be the kid's uncle. You weren't going to win that race.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, Nashville's kind of cool. Vanderbilt's an up and coming thing.
And there was just a lot of people that were like, oh, when's he going to learn to live on it? I'm like, folks, who the hell are you to say that somebody shouldn't do something? He's got a good relationship with his uncle. He had the right and freedom to do it without any penalty. It'd be like somebody telling you that, why are you always taking a job here? Or why? No, it's his life. It's fine. You can be disappointed, but sounds like, Sounds like he's got a great relationship with his uncle. That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah,
that's
nothing
great.
wrong with that.
No,
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I wish he was gone to Iowa, but
I think most Iowa fans saw that and kind of.
You're right.
Crap, that's probably not going to happen.
Always focusing on the wrong ratio.
No, but it's true, and I think Rebraca last. I don't want to say last resort, but the name we know. I just don't want McCaffrey right now saying, well, portal recruiting is awful and seeming to have disdain in it while still being in it. That he can say that right now. Right now, we're not going to really sweat that. But when if they're struggling to get in the NCAA and they didn't have when there are so many portal guys and you don't help yourself, it's going to be a question he's going to have to answer.
There's no doubt.
Probably over and over and over and over again to the point where he's red-faced.
Well, and one of the reasons why is because the guys down the road at Iowa State
thank you.
They are like bats in the entryway to a cave, just hanging upside down, counting the people that are walking in. I mean, it's just, but they got a new coach there, TJ Otzelberger. They went winless in the Big 12, and they have a massive rebuilding project. If Iowa doesn't add anybody from the portal, I think that they're an NCAA bubble team. So
probably, yeah. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and that brings something else. And Nevin Nolte had asked some thoughts on Mulvey reclassifying, but also how his development. He's obviously, I think he'll play next year. Where I think he looks ahead of Agundale, skills wise, based upon what I can see. But there was another question and comment that came up. This is from Tom Becker. I really feel like Joe Wieskamp could come back and play himself into a first-round pick in 2022. If there's always a place in the NBA for a 6'7" guy who's an elite shooter, and And then besides injury risk, seems that he has nothing to lose and possibly millions to gain by coming back, and therefore he should and will, ! Tom, thank you for taking the time to send that text. I disagree with you. I think that he is not going to come back and play his way into more millions. I think Joe is very near his collegiate peak. Yeah, he could come back next year and average another 4, 5, 6, maybe points a game. Get close to that 20 points per game that Adam Haleska did in Adam's senior year after Bruner and Horner and Doug Thomas and Eric Hansen and those guys moved on. But I don't think that statistical production is going to make him any more money. The NBA knows right now what Joe Wieskamp is. And that doesn't mean he won't get better as he gets older in the pros. They know what he is. They know he's one of the best shooters in the entire class if that comes out. And him going back to Iowa next year, Mark, I would offer only stands to potentially hurt his value because now you're 20, now you're 22, 23. I think it's the right time for Joe, but he's going to go through the process, not sign with an agent, which is his right.
How much can he change his body in a year? Can he see? To me, the one thing I question about Joe's game is finishing at the rim, being able to be strong enough to go through the car wash and get to the rim and finish. Can that improve that much in a year? Can he put on 10 pounds of muscle and not have the rest of his game changed? I don't think so. I'm kind of with you on that. And if you're Iowa, do you want Wieskamp to treat next year? And you know what? If you get him back, you're happy as hell and it doesn't matter. But do you want him treating next year as his, I'm going to put on weight year?
Right. That's exactly it. He could go do that with a two-way contract in the NBA. Second round pick.
And get paid. Yeah.
Signed a two-way deal, get paid maybe 30, 60 grand or more in the G League while also being put on a workout regimen by that club that, he can get paid for it. And he's graduating this spring in 3 years. Congratulations, Joe. That's an amazing accomplishment.
That is kick-ass.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, I think it was degree in finance in 3 years. Are you serious?
That's amazing. I hate guys like that, but I'm always very congratulatory because 4.5-year me would be very jealous.
Yeah. 5-year me says, screw that. I got more out of it than all y'all did.
Right answer, man.
Yeah.
Right answer.
Yeah. I was always going to be an entrepreneur anyway. Why the hell hurry up with it?
There you go.
And he's going to and he's going to get married this year. So John Miller and Joe Wieskamp at the same ages couldn't have been any more different. John's still wanting to go uptown to the Ped Mall. Southern Illinois had a Ped Mall. Joe's going to be married. Hey, listen, if Joe comes back, I'll be tickled pink because that's what Joe wanted to do. If Joe goes to the NBA and tries that route, even if he makes it this year or not, I'll be tickled pink because that's what Joe wants to do because he's certainly earned all that.
So if he goes... wow. I mean, that's a team that is it's a bubble team.
It's a bubble team. Here's another pivot off of this too, Mark, that Tyler Ryman asks, how much impact would Jordan Bohannon's possible return be to Joe Toussaint? And
a negative impact.
I think a negative impact.
Joe needs to play. Joe, you don't know where Joe's going to go. You don't know what kind of team you're going to have with Joe. With Jordan, you'll have a guy who hits 3-pointers.
Limited defensively.
Limited
Limited off the dribble.
Well, has good attitude. Will make a lot of money probably actually, he won't have that NIL opportunity, at least at Iowa.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, you're right. They could.
Who knows? Well, the session's about. Well, you're more right than I am because the session's about over, and I don't think anything's going to happen. So you're more. I mean, if Jordan comes back, that again, he has the opportunity to come back. I am not going to sit here and write and say, well, he shouldn't come back because that hurts Joe Toussaint. Jordan has the option to come back. He's one of the greatest, most fun, entertaining basketball players in Iowa basketball history, in my opinion. Greatest from a standpoint of he's the best 3-point shooter they've ever had. And he's got swag that I just would mount on a wall if you could mount swag. All right. I love that. I love Bohannon's play.
I do
so
too.
whatever he does, great. But if he chooses to come back, it may have a negative impact. It would have a negative impact on the minutes of Joe Toussaint, Tyler Eulis, and it's Perkins, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what you're dealing with.
It's kind of like, do you want Brian Ferentz to be the next head coach, knowing that you're still going to have an offense that is like my mom's butterbean dish when we were kids. The butter beans weren't quite done. The offense isn't quite ready. And so eventually you come up with a plan with your brother to throw the butter beans at each other so mom never cooks them again. Strained analogy, I'll admit.
I've never had butter beans, so I don't even know what they are.
John, if they're undercooked, it's like eating a softball.
Are they like lima beans or pinto beans or
bigger,
black beans?
bigger, more meatier?
So they're from the legume family.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Then I want nothing to do with butter beans.
They are a Wisconsin treat.
I am out. So yes, but so is the uncooked fish.
I'm okay with that. I'm very good with the sushi, but
it's not sushi. It's like some kind of nasty thing.
Which one are you talking about? The lutefisk?
Yes, that.
That's more, to me, that's more Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota, Wisconsin, same thing, right?
Yeah, you're right.
No, I'm not. I was waiting for you to push back on that because it's probably not right.
Bunch of Lutherans, basically.
Well, that's exactly true. Gosh, I think that we've kind of hit on them. One last thing that's unless you had any other basketball things you wanted to bring up.
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. Was there any other new? Conor McCaffrey's getting his second hip worked on soon, or has?
Fran says that he thinks there's no question that Conor will be ready to play. Fran is always at 12. I dial it back to 8. I think that there's a possibility that Conor could still be not at full go when the season starts, but probably working his way in.
I like how you put that 12 and then you go 8.
Yeah, just to go back to 8. I mean, he goes straight past 11.
With Ferentz, it's the other way around.
Exactly.
A lot of times.
That's it. That's why I said earlier, if Ferentz brings up somebody names when he's not asked by the media, even if he said the guy's looking good out there, that's all he says, and no one asks Ferentz about that said guy, that's a 12. That peaks on the red line.
Yep, I'm with you.
You
read that well.
Todd Tracy says, with the NCAA messing up at every turn, especially with their women's sports, do you see colleges leaving the NCAA and forming a new national organization, or is the future landscape of college sports more regionalized? I want to say this first, Todd. I want to dive into this. Mark, I'm going to be the first to say it and borrow a line that you and Scott used to use. That's a whole other podcast.
It is.
Because there's a ton of meat on the bone. And let's just say that I'm ready to serve that meat up because I have a lot of ideas. And I also have a very good idea what some colleges are actually considering as we speak relative to that topic. So some point in time during the horse latitudes this summer, Mark, I'd really love to dive into that.
What was the question again? Exactly.
With the NCAA basically screwing up at every turn, do you see colleges leaving the NCAA, forming a new national organization?
Okay.
Or is the future landscape of college sports more regionalized than that? So
that's a great question. I know we talked about that, and I know you have some thoughts. And I do. That is a whole other podcast, and that'll be a very interesting one. I will just say this very generally. I have it in my head, and I can't get it out, that the next round of football is going to be the next TV deal is going to be 40 to 65 teams, the Power 5. It's going to be a Power 5 TV deal. And
you really believe that?
Yeah, I think there'll be I think there'll be a 40-team division eventually. Look at how many teams that are actually elite. Last year it was 2.
Right?
And one was so much better than the other. The teams we thought would make the final made the final, and the team we thought would win won. Alabama over Ohio State. So I think that
It's such a regional.
I think a 40-team league where they all or regionalized thing where they all play each other, and where all the games are Power 5 versus Power 5. Because John, I've lost a ton of interest in Big Ten versus MAC games. I've lost a ton of interest in they're just not playing on the same field.
What about Iowa versus UNI?
Every once in a while to help UNI's coffers. I'm good with that.
Yeah. I threw that to you because I think you graduated from UNI.
Yeah, I graduated from UNI. I always say that I'm a big I think it's shitty that Iowa doesn't play UNI in basketball, and I think it's shitty because of this. It was Licklater's idea. Licklater's like, hey, why are we playing them? Licklater, the Butler guy, saying as the Iowa Big Ten coach, saying, well, we're not going to play little guys anymore. That's why I don't like it. That's why I don't like it. But Iowa fans, they think it's some sort of charity for UNI. Well, the series was pretty even toward the end there. If you're interested in dominating your state, which I don't know why you would be. I mean, you get nothing out of it. I get that. So the game going away makes sense to me, and it's fine. But I would want to go away landing punches on UNI as the bigger team, as the team that is expected to win. That's just my one beef with it.
Right. And to me, I think too, yes, there's a risk in that game, but with where UNI's been relative to the the RPI or whatever change the RPI, you want to play teams that are like 100 to 150 to 175. You don't want to play teams that are ranked 322nd. You can manipulate the power rankings, and UNI is a good team. I mean, oftentimes they're well above that 100, and it's a risk, but it's college basketball. It's not that big of a deal, so I'm okay. I think college football is too regional of a sport to get to 40. Who are you going to start cutting out? I mean, we're playing Survivor. Let's just start with the Big Ten.
Here's what I would do. 40 teams are in the tournament, or in the league that year. I think college football screams for an element of relegation.
I love every bit of that.
If you have, say 65, say the Power 5 has its own division, which it probably should be.
Yes.
I would do this. I would have affiliate conferences. Big Ten, you have the MAC is your buddy. The MAC is your guys are regional, somewhat regional, mostly regional, and let's say there's a Northern Illinois. Let's say Northern Illinois gets it going, and Indiana. I'm not going to use Indiana right now. Illinois and Illinois craps the bed, and they're sitting there making all the money, the TV money, but they're a floor team. They're just cashing the checks and not doing anything. Not building, not winning. So Northern Illinois is going there. Yeah, you know what? There's got to be a mechanism to promote a team that's trying.
I love the
program
notion
that's trying, and there's got to be a notion where a team that's crapping the bed, hiring a coach every other year, has its, and then just collecting the, let's say Amazon money, Amazon billions that'll come from the next TV deal. You're just sitting there collecting and paying your AD $1 million a year and all that kind of crap, but you're not improving. You're putting out a crap product. Well, Northern Illinois is ready to take your place. You got a 2-year window.
I love the notion of that. I really do.
I don't think it'll happen. Football will never have relegation.
Right. You're right. It won't happen. But yeah. So that'll be a fun topic to dive into, and that will be
whole other podcast.
A whole other podcast. And at some point in time this summer, Mark and I are going to dabble in a little music and pop culture too. But
gotcha.
At any rate, one more thing you had.
I watched. I'm a big TCM guy. Last night, Last Picture Show. Highly recommend. A brilliant movie that will make you sad. And then I watched Way Too Late. I got my COVID shot and I was a little nervous. Nothing happened. I got my second COVID shot. Nothing. I'm a little logy, and that's about it. But I watched Leaving Las Vegas, the Nick Cage movie. Oh my God, what a freak show! Totally drawn in. Couldn't stop watching. It's 3 a.m. I'm like, oh damn it.
Oh my gosh, dude. That's I don't stay up that late, but I don't know. I think I have seen that one. I watched a movie recently that I hadn't seen for years. That's one of the most disturbing movies ever, but it's one of my Shawshank Redemption is one of my movies that I go to whenever it's on. Pulp Fiction is one of my go-to movies. Ridgemont High is one of my go-to movies. Train Spotting. I ran across Train Spotting. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is not that I've ever considered doing heroin, but once I saw that movie for the first time in like 97 or 98, guaranteed I would have never ever tried that. So that movie is like, don't do drugs, son. Here's why. Great movie, but disturbing movie.
Once in a while, I'll throw out the term, if there's something gross and I don't want anything to do with it, I will just say, yeah, that's the worst toilet in Scotland.
Yes. That's like the first 3 or 4 minutes of the movie. Yeah. All right, folks, that'll wrap up this installment of Hawkeye Podcast. As always, we appreciate your support. We appreciate you considering supporting the sponsors that support this podcast. That would be barntownbrewing.com, Barntown Brewing. Also, Fong's Pizza, fongspizza.com, as well as Heartland Flagpoles and Flags, and you can find their website at heartlandflags.com. And if you forget any of that, just at the beginning of this podcast and or video episode, however you're consuming it, we have their promotions there that you can always say, wait, what are those guys talking about? What's the name of that beer company they're talking about? You know that you can just fire up one of our podcasts or our videos, and we've got it right there for you. So we'd really appreciate you giving them an opportunity to earn your business and become in your standard rotation of consumption world that we live in. All right, that'll wrap it up. For Mark, I'm John. We'll see you soon.